everybody. I'm Rusty, aka William Robinson, aka Dr. Robinson, and I am the Blues Doctor. This is my podcast, The Blues Doctor Recommends. We are back in our Orange Beach studios this week, and we're glad you're here also. So please sit back, like, subscribe, share this video, make comments, let all your friends know, and we'll get started. We've only got one event on the calendar this week that I'd like to discuss, but it's a good one, and it's in part because I got to participate in it. On October the 23rd of 1940, that was the day that Big Chief Alfred Doucette was born. So we got to celebrate his 85th birthday this week. If you're not familiar with the Mardi Gras Indian phenomena, I encourage you to look it up. Basically, the Mardi Gras Indians are groups of people who got together in the poorer neighborhoods of New Orleans to celebrate Mardi Gras. In those days, in fact, for most of Mardi Gras, many of those people couldn't afford to join one of the crews or groups that put on the parades and the balls and so forth. So these groups of neighbors typically got together in their own neighborhoods and developed chants and dances and made up these elaborate costumes made of beads and feathers that sometimes took months to put together and are extremely elaborate. And they would march on Mardi Gras Day up and down the neighborhoods. And it may not be on the typical parade route. In other words, it could be random, anywhere in town. They went anywhere they wanted. It was almost as if it were in defiance of the traditional Mardi Gras crews of the day. The chants that they wrote frequently became songs eventually that became recorded and then turned into traditional Mardi Gras classics that we listen to this day. If you've ever heard the song Iko Iko, which was done as a hit by Dr. John, but originally by the Dixie Cups, this song was based on the chants of Mardi Gras Indians, and there are many others. Chief Doucette is and has been the leader of the Flaming Arrows tribe for 50 years or so, and he's still going strong. His family and friends threw him a birthday party this week, and I had the privilege of being invited. It was lots of fun. It included a number of musicians and other New Orleans characters and celebrities. Guitar Slim Jr. was there, Troy Turner was there, Keiko Kamaki was there, Chiara Tolentino, and many others, including me, had the honor of performing with the chief, who has promised that he will be back next year and the party will be even bigger. And I wouldn't bet against him. Here's a sample of Big Chief Alfred Doucette doing Hey Pocky Way, which is one of those traditional Mardi Gras songs that I mentioned before. Hey Pocky Way was a hit by the Meters in 1974. So here's Chief Doucette doing that at the party this past week.
I think won't be long. They got Indian holiday, singing in the song. I need everybody. Say, come on down. It's mighty right morning. Won't you walk down? Let me say, everybody say, hey, like way.
In our medicine segment this week, we're going to talk about cancer since we've gotten away from that for a while. Specifically, we're going to talk about lung cancer. And what I'd like to call this discussion in particular is lung cancer myths and misunderstandings. You know, lung cancer is relatively common in the US, and what's worse is that it's among the most lethal cancers there are. There were 218,000 cases of lung cancer in the US in 2024 and 142,000 deaths in that same year. So, despite that relative prevalence, lung cancer is widely misunderstood. So let's talk about that. I've got 10 myths about lung cancer that I'd like to kind of dispel with you. Number one, only smokers develop lung cancer. And that's not correct. And unfortunately, it's a very hurtful myth and causes stigmas for some people. According to the CDC, around 10 to 20% of people with lung cancer in the US have never smoked or smoked fewer than 100 cigarettes in their entire lives. Every year, about 7,300 deaths from lung cancer are among non smokers. Some of them may have something to do with secondhand smoke, but that's hard to keep up with, as the CDC reports. And a further 2,900 deaths may be from radon gas exposure. But the bottom line is not everybody who has lung cancer has a history of smoking. Reason number two, there's no way to reduce the risk. And that's not true. If you stop smoking now, your risk begins to fall immediately. After 10 years of non smoking, your risk falls to almost that of a non smoker or a never smoker. Also, non smokers who are exposed to secondhand smoke at home or at work increase their risk of developing lung cancer. So, smokers need to remember that they are affecting the health of non smokers in their home or in their workplace. People have asked me about what about smoking marijuana or other smoking products? It's assumed that there is at least some risk of lung cancer from smoking marijuana, but tobacco smokers typically consume lots more tobacco per capita than marijuana smokers do of marijuana. So the degree of risk with marijuana is uncertain, but probably not zero. Perhaps the most promising advance in lung cancer is that of the use of low dose CT screening for a high risk population, such as people who are at least 50 years old with a history of smoking a pack or more a day for 20 years or more. We know that if you screen those people with low dose CT of the chest, that reduces lung cancer mortality by about 20%. So, if you fall into that category, make sure to ask your doctor about CT screening. Number three, only older adults develop lung cancer. And that's not true also. Although more than half of the people diagnosed with lung cancer are older than 65, the number of people below the age of 50 getting lung cancer has been increasing over the last decade, especially among women. It's really not clear why that's happening. It may be because the overall rate of smoking has decreased dramatically in the US. So we're seeing sort of a different demographic at play. Reason number four, living in a polluted city is worse than smoking for your lung cancer risk. There is evidence that pollution generated by traffic increases the risk of lung cancer. For instance, the authors of a big meta analysis, and that means a review of a number of separate papers or research studies on the topic, said that exposure to nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and fine particulate matter was positively associated with a risk of lung cancer. Occupational exposure to air pollution among professional drivers significantly increased the incidence and mortality of lung cancer. However, comparisons between pollution and smoking are they're harder to make. Realistically, living in polluted cities is almost certainly a risk factor, but it's probably far less than simply the use of tobacco products. Number five, I've smoked for years. There's no point in stopping now. I mentioned before, but I'll repeat it because aside from lung cancer, stopping smoking also reduces the risk of developing a range of other conditions: high blood pressure, heart disease, osteoporosis, diabetes. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been smoking. Quitting smoking at any time improves your health. No doubt about it. When you quit, you're likely to add years to your life, breathe more easily, have more energy, and save money, if nothing else. Reason number six, if you have lung cancer, you may as well continue to smoke. Again, that's not true. I've actually done some of this research myself. People with lung cancer who quit smoking actually have a better prognosis. And the use of an active quit line based smoking cessation program appears to be the most effective method for helping those people stop smoking. And I'll show the reference to that here. What we believe is that radiation therapy actually works better in people who are not actively smoking. We know that radiation relies on the presence of oxygen in the tissue, and we know that active smoking reduces the level of oxygen in the tissue, including lung tissues. So it makes sense that if you're actively smoking and have less oxygen on board, then radiation therapy, which is a common thing we use for lung cancer, won't work as well. Number 7, and this is one that applies to a lot of different cancers. Lung cancer surgery makes the cancer spread. And like I said, I've heard that about multiple cancers, and there is no good evidence that appropriate cancer surgery makes cancer spread. There are individual stories about people whose cancers seemed to grow or progress after surgery, but that's typically the result of one of two things. Either the cancer itself was very aggressive to begin with, and it was going to grow whether you did surgery or not. Or, and this is possible, the wrong operation was done. That's why it's important for someone who has been diagnosed with lung cancer, or I think any other cancer, to go to a trained and board certified cancer specialist, even if that means you have to travel. I don't mean to criticize anybody's local doctor, but realistically, small town general surgeons are probably not the best choice for a cancer operation. Cancer surgery utilizes different philosophies, even as well as different techniques. And a surgeon who does one or two cancer operations per year is simply not as good as a specialist who does them all the time. Number 8, breathing in talcum powder increases lung cancer risk. Talcum really has not been associated with a higher risk for lung cancer, despite what you may have heard. This has been a wives' tale for many years, and it's simply not true. Miners who work around talc have been shown to be at higher risk for cancer, but they're exposed to a lot of other risk factors as well, radon gas and maybe many other things. And those are probably more important. Plus, miners, unfortunately, smoke at higher levels than the general population. So there is no clear data supporting talc as a risk factor in and of itself for lung cancer or any other cancer. Number 9, lung cancer is always terminal. Thankfully, this is also false. When we catch lung cancer early, as with CT screening, like we talked about, it has a cure of perhaps more than 60%. Even lung cancer diagnosed in more advanced disease today has a better potential for long term survival than it did even 5 years ago. Over the last 10 years or so, the number of treatments for lung cancer has exploded. We've learned how to look at cancer specimens for mutations at the molecular level, and many of those markers have become targets for medications that are created synthetically directly to attack those targets. So we can create very specialized medications for an individual cancer often. That has increased our options for treating lung cancer dramatically and has expanded the overall survival. We find these new targetable or actionable is sometimes the word we use markers all the time. I read about new markers almost weekly, it seems like. So stay tuned in because this news changes rapidly. Reason number 10, antioxidant supplements protect against lung cancer. I know this is probably going to bother some people because it seems logical in some ways. It seems like antioxidants, such as from a number of different plants, should work. It's been proven that we can protect ourselves from DNA damage that would include cancer causing mutations or other genetic mutations by using particular plants. But unfortunately, they really have failed to demonstrate any conclusive protection against lung cancer. We've done a series of clinical trials trying to do just that, and none of them have really worked. We've studied things like the carotenoids and vitamin C that might presumably have had some protective effect against lung cancer, but the results are ambiguous. In fact, at least one of those studies showed the exact opposite. In other words, it resulted in more cases of lung cancer than were to be expected. So I think we have to wait and see before we can say anything definite about antioxidants for lung cancer.
I want you to
For our live music segment this week, here's another couple of songs from Chief Doucette's birthday party this week.
So yeah.
The first segment, or the first song, was Guitar Slim Jr. doing Pride and Joy from Stevie Ray Vaughan. And following that was Chiara Tolentino doing Gimme One Reason by Tracy Chapman. And there was a number of other songs performed that were all great, but these were a couple of my favorites. Don't cut. And that's about all we have for now. Now, you can catch the Green Wave football team traveling to meet the UT San Antonio Roadrunners on ESPN this Thursday, October 30th, with a kickoff of 7:30 p.m. Tulane is a 4.5-point favorite as of today, which is Sunday, but I'm thinking they're going to really turn it on this week in response to the last couple of weeks in which they've kind of been unfocused and have not performed as well as they should. On the other hand, you could look at this as something of a trap game as Tulane goes on to face league-leading Memphis next week in a game that will probably determine the conference championship. So we'll have to see which Green Wave team shows up. So as I usually say at this point, please watch next week's podcast. Okay? See you later.